What do you do if you earn too much to get legal aid to help you, but not enough to be paying enormous or endless legal bills? Or if your ex is making your life hell after separation and trying to punish you through racking up expensive legal fees? Well, if that's your situation, great news, this episode is perfect for you. Just before we start, however, a trigger warning, there will be discussions of coercive control and family violence. And also a legal disclaimer, this is general information. This is not legal advice. Welcome, Mum.
Hello, Laura. Hello, everyone.
So before we get started, let's get to the jingle and then let's get into it.
Hello, I'm Laura, divorced mother of 3, and I'm here with my mother, Lynette Galvin, with 35 years experience in family law. You're listening to the Divorce Course podcast. Through our candid discussions, we hope to help you through your divorce or de facto separation. We will be answering the most commonly asked questions and covering the stages and steps that you will face on your way to freedom.
There was an article on the 27th of August by Isabella Ross in the ABC called Exorbitant Costs of Family Court Matters for Sydney Parents, Threshold for Legal Aid Limited. And this article, Mum, was talking about how there's this missing middle where people are earning too much for legal aid and they're not earning enough to be able to pay for lawyers to do all of the work. And the stats in the article said there's only 8% of households qualify for legal aid, but the poverty line actually sits at 13%. So there are people, even if you're not on the poverty line, but you're just trying to keep it all together for paying all the bills and everything on top of trying to pay lawyer fees, that it's really quite a stress, particularly if this Alyssa lady that was interviewed in the article said the kids need to be the top priority. So there's this emotional toll where they're feeling like they have to spend all this money because kids are the top priority.
Yeah.
So I thought let's do an episode to help that missing middle, those people that are there today. Or even if you're not the missing middle, even if you are using lawyers and you're looking at how much you're spending, because Alicia, who was in the article, she'd spent over $300,000 in legal fees.
Really?
And her ex had spent over $400,000. And they hadn't even got to the end yet. So there's so much that people can spend. And so I thought, let's do an episode to help those people who have got lawyers or who are thinking about getting lawyers or think that they can't get a lawyer or they can't get legal aid. Because, Mum, you must be seeing this a lot too.
Oh, I've always seen it a lot. Even if you're quite well off, people aren't spending just their salaries on paying their lawyers. They're spending savings or equity in the house, or they're borrowing.
And it just seems really unfair. You're already turning your life upside down. You've already probably gone from 2 incomes to 1 income or 1 income to none. And then you're also spending your life savings, or someone in the article was trying to get money out of super to pay for their legal fees. So there's just a lot. So let's have a look at what the legal fees usually are.
Yeah.
Then we'll look at how they can balloon if it's high conflict. We'll look at the side effects of legal abuse through post-separation abuse and what you can do about it as well. And then we'll talk about the ways you can use a lawyer or what you can do if you're one of these people and how to keep the cost down yourself. And we'll talk about how to use the pre-court process to your advantage. We'll give you some great strategies. And basically, we're going to try and help you not drown in legal fees. So let's get started. Mum, let's talk about the legal fees. Typical hourly rate for a lawyer?
Yeah, is somewhere between $500 and even I've heard as high as $1,000 an hour.
And I guess that's depending where you are in Australia.
I guess.
Cities are probably more expensive.
Yep. I've recently heard of a regional specialist solicitor who's charging nearly $700 an hour.
Holy smokes.
So it's expensive.
And that the hourly charge, Mum, that's not just for doing documents. They charge you if they just even talk to you?
They do. And so as a lawyer, your boss normally will give you a number of hours, billable hours you have to achieve, and they can charge for even considering your case, looking at it and thinking about things and researching. And the thing is that they charge in 6-minute unit by and large. Nearly every lawyer does. They charge in 6-minute units. That means if you've got a $600 an hour lawyer and you talk to them for 6 minutes, that's 1/10 of an hour, so it's $60. If you talk to them for, say, 8 minutes, it's double that because it's every 6 minutes or part thereof. So instead of a $60 phone call, you've got a $120 phone call with your lawyer.
Wow. So let's have a little walkthrough. First time you see a lawyer, they're going to charge you for talking to them. So you might see them for an hour. So that's, like you said, between $500 to some people are charging $1,000.
Yeah.
So that's 1 hour.
Yeah.
Then they're going to probably write your ex a letter. That's the first thing you usually do.
Yeah, and it's usually quite a comprehensive letter with a lot of, usually a bit of a history, can be inviting the other person to mediation. So there's a lot in it. So it's not just going to be a 6-minute letter, okay? It'll be possibly 10, 15 minutes worth of letter. So that
would be what?
180, say.
Okay.
And then they send it to you to see if it's okay by you. And that will be another 60. That's 240. And sometimes they'll write to you as well, just confirming your instructions. And that could be another one. And then you say yes or no to the letter, or what you might want to tweak the changes. You convey that. You tell that to the lawyer. That's another $60 at least. And then the lawyer makes the amendment and then sends it off. So that's amendment, $60, sending it off $60, letting you know it's gone to the other side, another $60. Can you see how quickly that's mounting up?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes.
And what about drawing up consent orders for property or consent orders for parenting? How much does that usually cost?
Yeah, look, it's obviously cheaper than a full trial. And some lawyers can give you a rough quote about how much. But I think it's around $3,500, $5,000 worth of work. And if the court wants more information, it could be more than that. And it's much more if you haven't finally negotiated the terms of your consent orders, and there needs to be a little bit of negotiation going forward to get on. So you could expect up to $20,000, I would have thought, if you've gone to the lawyer with an agreement in theory at least, in basic understanding that you're both on the same page, you and your ex.
Right. So before you get to the agreement, you might need to go to mediation. How much does it usually charge to take a lawyer to a mediation?
Someone told me yesterday their lawyer quoted about $3,000 to $4,000.
Right.
Because a mediation can usually starts at 9, goes till 4. It's a full day one. And so what are we looking at there? 6 hours and add $600 an hour. It's $3,600. Plus the documents you've got to do before you get to court.
Right.
We're probably freaking people out here.
Yes. Let's not freak out because we're gonna help you with some tips. And I think maybe the other thing that gets overlooked, and I know the article did touch on this a little bit, but high conflict. So we've got our divorce personality types, but high conflicts and manipulative and controlling people. We talk about in our post-separation abuse episodes. If you haven't listened to that, go and listen to one of them. But they use the system as a weapon.
Yes.
They use lawyers as a weapon to drain you of money, to drain you of will, to drain you of hope, and to really just make you want to give up. And the amount of emails we get from people saying, I just want to give up. This is just too hard. This is too hard. I can't keep going on like this. What are my options? And we're going to get to that. But Mum, have you ever had people who the other side has just sent you all these unnecessary letters or trying to make you meet or do mediation over and over again?
That sort of thing, yes. And particularly if the other side is not represented, they may send you letters on a daily basis, emails on a daily basis, knowing that you will have to read it, $60, send it to your client, $60, respond, $60. Do you know that? So they're just trying to run up their excess fees. Sometimes the manipulative and controlling people, that's the only contact they've got with their ex, and they know they can make you do things on a certain day, like turn up at mediation or have to respond or have to listen to them, particularly when you've gone full, like nothing to do with me and you're not going to, no contact with them at all. This is the only way they can do it. And it's cruel. And there are a number of strategies I used as a lawyer, but I don't know how common they are. But it might be something you can talk with your lawyer about keeping those costs down.
We've got a great episode called Is Your Ex Bombarding You with Legal Letters?
Subtle title.
Like 9 strategies, 9 steps that you can take and put in place with your lawyer to keep those costs down. I'll put that link in the show note. But in the article, Mum, by the ABC, Alessa said, some people use the legal system to destroy their ex-partner. I've no choice but to keep paying out money because he won't settle. I think it's a form of economic abuse. And he's obviously angry and wants to punish me, but it's money that should have gone to the kids. And that's what we're seeing. That's literally these people, they're just pulling their hair out. And if you're listening today, big hugs to you because we understand that. So
absolutely.
And Mum, are lawyers doing this on purpose or are they being used as a tool?
I don't like to think that lawyers are being used as a kind of a blunt instrument, or as one of the judges used to say, lawyers should not be a gullible mouthpiece for their client. But some lawyers are being used that way. Sometimes if you've got a very overbearing ex, then you might find...
Yeah.
If you've got a really overbearing ex, they may be overbearing to their lawyer as well. They'll generally find someone they can bully, and then the lawyer buys into their story, and when they ring up and say, send this letter, the lawyer just does. We ought not do that. Lawyers ought to be a bit thoughtful. I've had times in the past, Laura, where I had a bloke wanted me to serve his wife with the documents on her birthday. And I said, no, I'm not doing that.
Yes. Absolute poop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is an example. It is happening. Justice Robert Benjamin in the article that we read, and I'll put the link to the article as well, said the consequences of obscenely high legal costs are destructive of the emotional, social, financial well-being of the parties and their children, and it must stop. Now, one of the things the court has added in the last couple of years is this cost. What is it, Mum? What's that thing that people have to do before mediation and before going to trial?
Pre-action procedures, and we have to reveal their costs.
Oh, yes.
Before each, and I think this is why the court has suddenly twigged at how much people are paying their lawyers, because there's a cost disclosure before every court event, and the lawyer has to give that letter to their client. It has to be shown to the judge and the other side, so that everyone knows how much skin they've got in the game.
And how much money's been spent. Have you seen any lawyers get in trouble?
I have read a few cases of lawyers getting in trouble for charging too much. And I think one of the elements is that the law has changed so that you have to do a lot more before you can actually file in court. You've got to do a lot of pre-action procedures, lots of disclosure and so forth, before the court gets their eyeballs on the case. And by then, you can have spent quite a lot of money if your case derails, escalates into something it wasn't really meant to be. So the court is hammering us about proportionality. Don't go looking for disclosure and running up $20,000, $30,000 worth of cost if the whole property pool is under only $100,000 or $200,000. So
I guess you're pointing out, though, there, Ma, the problem is this kind of silly shenanigans of deliberately running up legal costs and deliberately trying not to settle doesn't get looked at until you actually go to court.
Yeah.
So there is that but there are other ways that you can, and we're going to talk about what you can do. So let's quickly look at the 3 ways you can use a lawyer strategically. And we have talked about this on our webinar. If you came along this week, we talked about this in the webinar. But no one told me this. And so I'm telling the world, and I don't care what lawyers say.
Shout
they
it
don't
out.
like it. They can not listen to the podcast anymore. But so there's 3 ways. There's the first class service. That's the one I thought was the only option. I thought that's all. Obviously, you just go to the lawyer, you give them their information, and you sit back and you let them do everything. But that isn't the only option. There are other options. You can do step in, step out. That's where you get the lawyer to do specific tasks that you really need them for, and then you do the rest, because let's face it, you're pretty smart. If you're listening to this, you're obviously trying to figure this stuff out yourself. So you're smart enough to do some of this yourself, and we'll talk about the things that you can do in a minute. And then there's that legalised support, which we 100% recommend no matter what. You've seen a lawyer before you start negotiating to find out where you stand. And you've seen a lawyer before you sign anything or before you send them an agreement. Like a lawyer, you need a lawyer to look at it, to make sure you haven't missed something. Because whilst you can educate yourself as much as you can, a lawyer knows the things that you don't know. So but the beauty of these 3 ways of using a lawyer, Mum, is that it means you don't have to. You don't have to pay all of your money to a lawyer if you're smart enough to do some of it yourself.
Yeah. It's like buying a whole hamburger, but you can manage the veggies. You only need a lawyer for the actual steak. And so they call it unbundling initially, but step in, step out is probably a better idea. But unbundling was the concept of dividing up all the things you have to do and working out if you can do some, if your lawyer needs to do some, and kind of I think it's imperative these days because whilst you kick yourself about the first class ride, Laura, I know what people were going through, what you were going through. I know what people are going through. So it must feel good to be able to go, look, I've got kids, moving, cars, everything, all the things to sort out. I'll just leave that with the lawyer and they can work it through for me.
I disagree.
Didn't you do that? You didn't?
No, I think if I'd known what was happening next, if I knew each step as it came, I would have been less stressed because every time anything happened, I had to wait to hear back from a lawyer. But if I'd known, okay, well, if that happens, then this happens. Or if this happens, then that happens. Or if they say they're going to take you to court, that actually takes like 2 months. If I'd known these things and if I'd had some control over the process, you've got to do your disclosure and you need to give these documents. Instead of just throwing it all at my lawyer and paying $1 bazillion every time I found a document, if I'd done that myself, I would have happily done that myself. And I know, but like you said, everybody's in a different spot. And looking back with hindsight is,
I believe what you're saying. I believe that same is true for everybody. If you know the process, if you go for surgery, you know what's going to happen and you know how long things are going to take. And if that happens, we'll do this. And if this happens, we'll do that. And you can kind of be confident. But with family law, lawyers tend to want to just expect you to go through it blindfolded and they'll tell you what's coming up next just about the time that you hit it. So, yeah.
Even if you're riding first class on a plane, they have a little screen that you can touch and see where you are up to and how much longer you've got to go.
That's
you don't
the
have
key.
that with family law. You don't have that. You just go in there and hope. And then on top of that, these lawyers to be a family lawyer, you've got to have a heart of gold or like drama. But if you're a family lawyer, you've got other cases. So you've got Not only have you got one client with all the dramas, you've got like 12, 24, 50 clients with dramas. And of course, you're not going to be able to give your full attention all the time to each one. So that's what I've noticed on the Q&As. We have people that come on and they haven't heard back from their lawyer for a couple of days and they're stressing about something. And then when you explain it, they're like, oh, that's so much better now. And that's what I had with you, I guess, ringing you up going, Mom, what does this mean? I can't get a hold of my lawyer. Does this mean? And you're like, no, don't worry about that. And I'm like, so it does help. So let's talk about how people can get some of their costs down. So let's talk about disclosure to start with. So, what is disclosure?
Disclosure is each of you showing the other person what property you've got, what's in the bank, what your wages are, everything to do with your financial situation and everything to do with children's situations as well. It's just so each of you has the same information as the other person and so that you could make an offer confidently, knowing that the property pool or the children's issues, or you can assess an offer that's come in. That's the nub of disclosure. Laura, one thing though, a person refusing to make disclosure is probably the most common form of systems abuse that I've seen. Because it doesn't cost them anything. Their lawyer doesn't have anything to say. And the other your lawyer is trying to ask for documents.
So disclosure, really, you can do a lot of that yourself. Like if you've got an ex who is doing the right thing, or even just doing your own disclosure, even if your ex is still being dodgy and not providing disclosure, getting all your bank statements, getting all your stuff together, the list that you need to give that's legally required before you go to mediation or before you make a property settlement. You can gather that up and create your own file system for that. You don't need a lawyer for that because if you could do like me and go, I found my bank statements, I'll send that to my lawyer. That's one email. And then later on, I finally found my tax returns, I'll send that to my lawyer. That's another email. And so I think I racked up about $3,000 in a month just if they just sent me a list and I did it all at once, I would have known. So anyway, you can do that yourself, guys.
Yeah.
So please please, I don't want to hear people saying, I haven't got to mediation yet. We're still at the disclosure phase and I've already spent $20,000. I don't want to hear it. I really hope that for you.
We hear it all the time. Yeah.
So the next thing people can do themselves to cut down on costs, Mum, is parenting arrangements.
Yeah.
You don't need a lawyer to figure that out.
And you don't even need mediation.
Yeah. So you can sit down with your ex, if they're not abusive, and come up with the schedule. Come up with your own agreement, your own arrangements. That you can do right off the bat.
Yep.
And a lot of people can do that. And I think for some reason people think they have to go to a lawyer to do that part of it.
Yeah.
But you don't.
No. I was predominantly doing property in my younger years as a lawyer, and children's matters would crop up from time to time. But I had a philosophy, if it's not broken, don't fix it. The best arrangement for children is something that's consented to by both parents, where both of them have got the best interests of the child in their mind. So if someone says to me, I'm having terrible drama with property, but we've got the kids sorted, I go, good, that's great, leave it.
Yeah.
So
it's different. If it's different, if you've got a coercive, controlling or manipulative ex who's trying to use the children as a way to punish you. And we do have some great episodes on ways to protect yourself from that. And I'll pop that in the show notes as well. But predominantly, you can do a lot of that yourself. To get a lawyer to write to your ex to say, she wants to pick up little Susie at 9 a.m. on Thursday. Are you okay with that? That's going to cost you $60. And then for someone to write back, look, I get it if you're afraid of them or something like that. But you also have the option of using a communication platform, a parenting platform. So there's one called Our Children. There's one called Our Family Wizard. It's got the schedules in there. You can create it. You can converse about who spends what money on, how to pay. Here's an invoice. Here's the school bill. You can do all of that in those platforms in a safe way, where they never need to know what your email address is because it's all there and it's documented, so they have to behave themselves.
And they can't delete it either.
And they can't delete it.
And, you talked about writing to say, can we pick Susie up at 9 a.m. instead of whatever time? The client has had to ring or email the solicitor to give those instructions, $60 using that $600 an hour. The lawyer then writes $60, it's $120. They get an answer back, $60, that's $180. And then they send it to you, $240, when you could communicate through this safe platform and see what happens.
So pop that in your checkout list if you are interested. We've got a good episode where we actually spoke to the person who created the Our Children platform, if you want to go listen to that. And if you want to learn about how to create your own parenting plan, we've got some really good episodes on that. I'll put them in the show notes. And of course, you can do our actual online course and create your own parenting consent orders. If you're separated or about to be and you need to get everything finalised and sorted but you don't know what to do next, or you're looking for a way to do your own divorce and settlement without spending thousands of dollars on lawyer, then you already know what you need to do, and that is to sign up and become a member of the DIY Divorce Blueprint. Empower, educate and equip yourself with the legal know-how and the tools you need to get divorced or de facto separated and finally settle. Work through this course at your own pace without feeling confused, lost, scared or overwhelmed of all the family law legal jargon and processes. Let us walk with you through this journey and show you a better way. So that gets to the next step. If you can't get your ex to agree on kids or property, you still can do negotiations yourself.
You still can. You can have your lawyer in the background. If you get a lawyer, you've found out where you stand and maybe you've discovered the lawyer will let you do step in, step out, then you can have them in the background to run things by, but you act for yourself so that your ex can only write to you and not be writing to your lawyer and incurring costs all the time.
Yeah. And so that way, if you end up with an offer you want to make to your ex, you get your lawyer to polish it up.
Yes.
And then you send it. And then that way someone with the legal brains checked it, but you're the one who's going to be able to do the negotiating for it. And I think that comes to, when it comes to negotiation with mediation, you don't necessarily have to take a lawyer, do you, Mum?
No, you don't have to. The models don't always include a lawyer. No one can force you to take a lawyer. If you feel like you might be overborne or pressured, you can usually take a support person with you. You can ask for different rooms. And I had the other day where it's 100% the ex is not going to reach agreement on anything because both parties are very entrenched. And that person decided to not take a lawyer because it would cost a fortune for that. And
for no outcome.
For no outcome. On the basis that, and I used to do this, that the lawyer would be available for a call if you get to an agreement or if you come to a sticky patch.
Mm. And I think we were only talking about this the other day, Mum, because we got a letter from one of our members who said, I went to the mediation and I stuck to my guns and I got what I wanted. And we were thinking about that because we've heard people who write in and say, I went to mediation by myself, but the mediator and the lawyer, his lawyer all talked me into agreeing to their agreement. But we were trying to figure out what the difference was. And we realized that lady that sat in there with no lawyer, with a mediator, a lawyer and their barrister, trying to get her to agree to it and her sticking to her guns is because she knew what she was entitled to. And she said she could hear your voice in her head, giving her the strong. So it gave her the confidence because if you don't have the confidence and you do have someone of an authoritative position, a mediator, or somebody who's got a lawyer, but it's their ex's lawyer, telling you what the law is, of course you're going to get a bit wobbly and go, oh, maybe I'm meant to, maybe they're right.
You called it your wobbly boot.
Wobbly boots. But of course they're telling you what they want you to agree to because they're the lawyer for your ex. And the mediators either don't, if they're not lawyers, they don't know the law. They want you to settle. So they're putting pressure on you to settle. So if you can go to a mediation without a lawyer, you can get yourself educated and learn that information and stick to your guns because we've heard it from so many of our members that they've done it.
And they still settle. They just don't get railroaded. And I think sometimes, to be fair, I think the other lawyers may not be as up to date on matters that you are because, like you said, Laura, every lawyer has heaps of cases, but you only have one case. So you're laser focused and you listen to us or you're doing the course, you know the latest cases. And I mean...
Today I have to share this story. Today I spoke to a lady and she said to me, I went to my mediation and I told the mediator, who was actually a judge.
A former judge,
about your podcast. And the judge said, oh, what rubbish. How could that possibly help you in this? Then she made him listen to it. And then he went, oh, actually, that's quite helpful. Not that we give advice, but she persuaded the past judge that it was actually a good thing to listen to. So there are and it gave her the power. Do you know what I mean? It gave her the power to tell a judge that she knew what she was talking about.
But not a sitting judge. One doesn't tell sitting judges that.
But a mediator.
Yes.
So there are things you can do, guys.
Yeah. And
then the other thing is using the pre-court process to your advantage. So, Mum, you've touched on the pre-action procedures and mediation. So can you explain, with the pre-action procedures and mediation, what are some things people can use in that sense that will, without having to use a lawyer, that can help move their case along?
Yeah. So in your leading up to mediation, of course, you need to have disclosure. If they're not answering you or if they're disregarding you, you don't have to go to a lawyer. You can use the pre-action procedure process, including particularly that notice of intention to file in court that you can do yourself. It's not a legal document, it's a letter, so to speak, that you're sending to him or her, and it gives them a set time limit after which they realise that you can go to court and you might go to court. And what you do for yourself is you have a plan. If they do get back to you with some of what you're asking for or all of what you're asking for, you may hold off going to court and ask for a bit more if you need it. But if they don't answer, you can have a plan as well, which allows you to then do the things to get it into court or at least make it a bit more serious for them.
Okay, good. So realistically, we're saying you don't have to use lawyers for every single step. And that notice of intention to file, you can go to a lawyer and get them to do it for you. But it is so basic and so easy that save yourself at least $1,000 or something writing that letter. So you don't have to do all lawyers or nothing. You can be flexible. Think about those 3 ways to use a lawyer. First class ride, And I talked about this in the webinar where if you are in first class ride, you're sitting in there, but you're not in the pilot's cockpit. You have no idea where you're going. And sometimes you end up, if you don't understand the process and you don't understand what's fair, you may end up with your lawyer sitting in front of you reading out this agreement that you don't actually want, that, you know, you could get stuck with it. Like, and end up, if the pilot for first class flies you to a completely different country, but it's too late. You're already there. So the other thing, the other thing is organising your case. So that's something you can do.
Yeah.
You can get all this sorted and organised. Don't waste lots of money on paying a lawyer to do it. You do the organising.
Yeah.
You know, we show you in our course how to figure out what your property pool is, how to have all that information in a spreadsheet for your lawyer, how to figure out all of those kind of things that a lawyer would otherwise have to sit down with you to create the property pool and figure out your percentages. They would have to sit down with you for a couple of hours in a meeting, you know, and you finding all the information and sending to them email at a time like I did and making a big bill at the end of the time.
Or ringing them every time you think of a question.
Yes, that's right. So, and if you are facing post-separation abuse, if you are facing coercive control while your ex is trying to run up that legal bill to make you suffer, there's ways to counter it. You can sit down with your lawyer, if you've got one, and explain to them, hey, we need to do something about this because it's obvious they're just trying to fight. How can we go about it? Can I do the step-in, step-out approach?
Yeah.
And people do that successfully.
Yeah. So what they'll do is they will usually tell the other person in the case that the lawyer no longer has instructions to do this correspondence, no longer has instructions to act on your behalf. But that doesn't mean they can't give you advice in the background. So you might be able to counter the changing by 1 hour, the times and all of those silly sort of letters. But then you might get a sticky one that you're not sure. Then you can run it by your lawyer. And lawyers should be able to do that for people because it's ridiculous for them to be charging lawyers' rates for responding to correspondence that doesn't need a lawyer's brain. They're just, you know.
Yeah. And I mean, we didn't even touch on what the actual fees are for certain things. We have an episode where we go through meticulously what everything costs down to photocopying, which is like $2.50 a page.
And who does these days?
I don't know, but there's so much in that episode where we take you through step by step the costings. And also, so basically going back to that article, that exorbitant costs of family court matters for Sydney parents, threshold for legal aid limited. Go and have a read of that. But I don't want to scare you all, but what I'm trying to point out is you need to go at this strategically. You need to not just think that your lawyer is going to swoop in and save you and make this an easy ride. Your lawyer's going to know the court process. Your lawyer's going to know the pre-action procedure process. But this is some of the stuff that you can do so that you've got your finger on the pulse and you're controlling the situation.
Yeah. And you know your life. You're an expert on your life. And there was some statistics I read that said about 28% of cases in the family court at the first time they go to court, first court event, have at least one party self-represented. That's an amazing difference over the years. And I've been in this field since 1982, right? And then what the court said, 28% are self-repped at the first court event. And then at the final hearing, 39% of people have a self-represented people. And the final hearing is where you do need a lawyer because you're cross-examining, there's rules of evidence and admissibility and making your case. But this sort of back and forwards with bank statements and things doesn't really need to be a lawyer's skill. You don't need it then. So be careful you're not spending all your money in the start and then not having enough at the end, because I can only assume these people have run out of money.
Well, the good news is you don't ever have to end up in court at all.
Yep.
The good news is you can mediate, you can negotiate, you can letter write, and you can get your consent orders, your children's consent orders and your property consent orders, and then you're done.
Yep.
That's the good news. The bad news is if you use a lawyer right from the start, which we always say you should see a lawyer at least once to go and find out where you stand. But if you use a lawyer for the easy stuff that's at the start, the backwards and forwardsing and the disclosure part and all of that, you could end up, like Mum said, one of those people who end up unfortunately having to go to court and then not having enough money for a lawyer because they spent the money for their lawyer at the start. So that's why Mum and I created the course we did. That's why when I read this article where they said there's a gap, what do we do? What can people do? There's not really much people can do. I was like, you can do our course. You can listen to our podcast. And at the moment, our course is open for enrollments. It's only open until the 10th of September. So this will be 7 days more. And we will be taking people on board. And we do help these people through. And we see, don't you, Mum? You speak to them when they have their calls with you. And we see the change in their confidence. We see how they become laser focused on their case. And we hear the best stories, absolute best stories.
We do. I love it.
That make me so happy to hear that they've come out with what they've wanted. They've stood up for what they're entitled to. They've had to stand up sometimes to their ex's lawyer or sometimes in this case an ex-judge in a mediation. But they've gotten what they want, and it just makes me so happy. And that's why we did it. That's why we created this, because like I said, I did make a big boo-boo right at the start, and the panic that would set in every time something was thrown at me. Until I spoke to my lawyer, I think my heart was at least above 200 beats per minute, until my lawyer would then tell me it was okay, or this is what's going to happen next. But I could get to you. So this is going to take that panic away. It's going to help. So we are open for enrollments. If you're interested, you can go to thedivorcecourse.com.au/enroll. But the doors close on the 10th of September. If you want to get in, make sure you get in soon. You can send us an email at thedivorcecourspodcast@gmail.com if you want to share with us any of your success stories that you've had over there, because they're making us feel a lot happier and feel like we're actually making a difference. And Mum, I think without a doubt, someone should nominate you for Australian of the Year, because I know how many people you've helped, and I'm so proud of you and so grateful that you've shared your knowledge with us and the people who listen to this religiously every week, who walk their dogs or whatever it is that they're doing. We're really appreciative of you. So if you are one of those people, please feel free to write us a review or subscribe to our YouTube channel, write us a review on Spotify or Apple, just so that other people can find us, because, it's quite lonely out there on your own. So thank you, Mum. Now, Mum, I always try to say, what would you like to embroider on a cushion, Mother, for this particular episode?
Yes. I think you can do it. I can do it.
I can do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's part of your journey. I'm very proud of you, Laura, because I know that it's easy to say I'm going to fix this, but it's a lot harder, and you've been the driving force, a lot harder to actually do the nitty-gritty. I mean, we've been doing this podcast for years now. I know the hours that you've been working on this, so that other people, you basically have written the course that you needed, but you didn't have. Yeah, we
really wish I'd had it.
I wished I could have acted for you, but I was family and I couldn't. Yeah.
Well, there was I'd want to say one more thing. There was a lovely lady that sent us a photo. Actually, we've got 2 photos this week. I loved them both. One was a photo of a dog and her daughter, and she said, "Thank you so much, you're helping." And that made me cry. Yeah. But the embroidered thing that was emailed us to was, from the Labyrinth, Babe with the Power. Yeah. The Babe with the Power. So it was a hand and it had the ball and it said Babe with the Power. And that, she said, if you want to embroider anything, this is what I feel like when I've listened to your episodes. That's what I feel like. And she went through and got her kids' stuff sorted. And Babe with the Power, I think, is a great thing if you want to embroider that. So, yes. So
I had to get my threads out and start.
Yes. But today's cushion says, I can do it.
Yep.
And you can do it. Yep. Many people have. And we can do it with you. So thank you again, Mum, for your time. Thank you to everyone who's been sending us in some great stories. It's really boosted us and it reminded us how important this is for everybody. Yeah. So big love to everyone with what you're going through. Hopefully you can go listen to those other episodes to save legal costs, and maybe you'll join the course and be working with us and seeing us every week on our weekly Q&As. All right. Thank you, Mum, for your time, and we'll see you all next week.
No worries, Laura. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Mum.
Bye.
If you found this podcast helpful, we'd love it if you could rate, review and subscribe. By doing so, you are spreading the word to help someone else just like you. Lynn would like to remind you that this podcast is general only and you should always get legal advice in relation to your particular situation. And remember that the Australian laws may have changed since recording